Hello, friends. Welcome to another episode of Cosmic Besties. Christy and I are continuing on taking you through the journey of the different clairs this week. If you saw our last episode, we did a little mini deep dive into clairvoyance, and this episode is all about clairaudience. So, clairaudience, as a refresher, is your ability to um, get messages from your higher self, from your guides through the auditory experience. That can look like hearing song lyrics that give you a direction or an answer to a question you might have had. It can look like you passing through the grocery store and hearing two people talking about some sort of topic and it relates to maybe a topic you had a question about, or perhaps you just solidly hear an answer. Like, maybe Christy and I are shopping at the mall and we're like, should we record our next episode on Sunday? And all of a sudden somebody walks by and you very clearly hear Sunday or you hear Tuesday. That can be an example of clairaudience. And I have 1,000 examples I could share, but before I dive in, Christy, what's your experience been with clairaudience?
So clairaudience is one that I use quite a bit. It's not quite as strong as like my clairvoyance or my claircognizant, but it is one of the ones that I cycle through. And I guess if I had to think of one of the most like prominent times where there was no other way to explain what was happening, I was driving and I had not been feeling very well. All my kids had been dealing with like a stomach bug. And so I thought that I had had a stomach bug and it just was not getting any better. I was really tired, just kind of not myself, not feeling like myself at all, kind of having similar symptoms to pregnancy. But I also had a baby at home. I had just had my second son. He was only 6 months old. Um, and I hadn't like had my cycle back. So I was like, there's no way I could be pregnant. I just have this like flu like, digestive thing going on that my kids had just had. And so I'm driving and I hear clear as day in a voice that is not my own, baby. And I'm like, that's kind of weird. So I keep driving and then I heard baby boy. And I was like, well, I guess I'll just like I'm going to the store anyway. I guess I'll just grab a pregnancy test just to like be careful and be sure that like, it's not a baby. It's how could it be a baby? Like I didn't have a period. Like there's no way. Like my baby was 6 months old. Who gets pregnant when their baby's only 6 months old? So I drive home and I'm sure you guys can guess it. I bought two different pregnancy tests and they were both immediately positive. So that was a very clear, definitive voice. That was not, it was actually a male voice. I don't know if it was the guide or if it was God or whomever, but I was almost 7 weeks, so they were probably like, girl, take the test already. And he was a boy, he ended up being a boy. I have three boys. So the baby boy was also very accurate. But I guess that's my like kind of um really prominent example where I was like, there's no way like it could be anything other than my clairaudience kicking in.
Wow, that's crazy. I love it. You gave me goosebumps when you were telling me that story. Mine are not like the words coming from the ether. Mine are often song lyrics that come on. So I'll share two stories. One I shared in a previous episode, but the abbreviated version of it is I kept hearing the same song, REO Speedwagon, Time for Me to Fly, like almost on a daily basis as I was trying to consider breaking up with a former significant other. And I wasn't listening to it. And so I was just like, oh, this song comes on a lot. And as time went on, it started to get more and more frequent. And then it got to a point where I was like, this is weird. This is really weird that every time I'm in the car with him, I hear this song. And that was my realization that, oh my gosh, like these are these are signs from the universe or from my guides or my higher self trying to get me
Mhm.
to listen up and get a clue.
Well,
Um,
also the fact that he was in the car with you,
I know, right?
they're like, hey, hint, hint.
I distinctly remember being like, isn't it weird that this song is always on the radio when we're in the car together? And he's like, I don't know. He went into something about, well, statistically, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. I don't even remember the conversation.
Yeah, that tracks.
Yeah. Um, but my second story also relates to pregnancy. So when I was pregnant with my son, I had had kind of like an easy pregnancy, but like a lot of anxiety postpartum with my daughter. And so I was really nervous that I was going to have that same experience with my son or that something was going to go wrong. And so it wasn't super intense, but it was this nagging feeling. And at that point, I had gotten more used to my gift of clairaudience. And so I started to use it to my advantage. And I remember doing a programming that said, and I was like, guides or higher self, I need a sign through a song within the next 24 hours that is going to be my validation that everything's going to work out perfectly okay. And I was waiting patiently, and that night I didn't hear anything that seemed like a sign one way or another. And I was like, okay, maybe this isn't gonna work. But then the next day I heard the song, the lyrics go, "Hey, look, Ma, I made it. Everything's coming up
Oh.
aces." I want to say that's Panic at the Disco or something like that. And I knew at that moment that that was the song, because I just knew. I don't know. Maybe that's maybe that's claircognizance combined with clairaudience. But that song then popped on at any point throughout the remainder of my pregnancy whenever I was feeling anxious.
Wow. Yeah, that's incredible. And I think what's interesting that you brought up in both those stories, like a theme, is that it kept happening.
Hmm.
So again, like I think that one of the ways people can differentiate between is this a sign or my clairaudience, or is this just a coincidence, is that for you it happened with specific people and it also happened multiple times.
Yeah.
So like a repeated pattern. So I think the difference between a sign and something that is purely coincidental is that the coincidental situation would be one time.
Hmm.
Um, if you'd only heard that song one time, I'd be like, well, like it could be a sign if you like want to believe that it's a sign, because we have free will, but it also could just be a coincidence. But the fact that you heard it multiple times and you heard it every time you were either feeling anxious or when you were with like a certain person, to me, that's a huge like green flag that's like, oh, that's a sign. That's your clairaudience kicking in. It's not just a coincidence.
Do you want to hear the kicker?
Yeah.
Postpartum, the day I am bringing Caspian home, it comes on in the radio when we were
Oh my
driving home together.
gosh.
And I
See?
started bawling.
That's your sign.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was your like, well, that was not your sign. That was your confirmation.
Yeah, yeah, that was my
Yeah.
confirmation for sure.
Yeah.
And then it still happens to this date with him. So if there are times where I'm feeling worried about something, whether he's
Mhm.
sick or he had an encounter where he was running across the concrete at the pool like a couple
Mhm.
years ago and like face planted on the concrete and had an egg on his head.
Oh,
I'm like freaking out. We're taking him
yeah.
to the ER just to get checked out just in case. And as we're driving there, the song comes on. So then
Mhm.
I'm like, huh, I breathe a sigh of relief. So it's really cool. And what Christy and I wanted to ask you all to do is to actually take a little piece of homework. And after you're done watching this episode or listening to this episode, we'd like you to write down two questions that you might have for the universe in different
Mhm.
areas of your life. So you could pick personal and professional, or you could pick like family and health. Just pick two things, write them down, and ask the universe to send you a sign or a message, an answer to your question or the direction you need to go within the next 24 hours through your clairaudience. And then just be cognizant of the different places you're at. If you're not fully present, if you're like on your phone scrolling TikTok when you're at the grocery store, or blasting music and talking to your kids while you're driving, like you might miss it. So you have to try to be fully present, but please
Uh,
do this over the next 24 hours and then come back and let us know what your experience is.
yeah, I think that that's a really kind of fun homework piece too. And um people like a lot of times when you are talking about like learning styles, people who are really good at like auditory learners, like people who like to listen to lectures as opposed to like actually going and writing things down or visually like looking at like a I don't know, like the professor standing in front of you, you're gonna find that this is easy to tap into for you. Same with people who are like very musical, like you brought up like the song lyrics. I think people who connect with music, you're clairaudient, you're gonna realize that it's easier to tap into for you. And the most important thing is it takes time. This is a muscle and you're training it, and not to be frustrated if it doesn't immediately happen to you. In fact, there is something to be said about like resistance and like kind of that repulsion, like where you're really wanting something and you're really trying to like bring that sign in or that answer in from the universe. If you're almost like trying too hard, the energy that you're sending out is I'm anxious and I don't trust the universe. And so the universe can't give you that message or that sign. So if you really just like, if you find yourself like, getting frustrated or thinking, like I'm saying, universe, like send me a sign, and I'm not receiving it. I would say take a step back and like go busy yourself. So like go for a walk or go watch a TV show. Actually, I bet if you watch a TV show, there'll be a song that comes on there, or someone will say something that will be like your sign. But get yourself out of that kind of like frantic and like chaotic energy. Um, because it can't come through when you are like repulsing it out, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that is such a great point.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we hope you have fun with your homework. Like I said, be sure to come back and drop a comment and let us know what your experience is. Or if you're interested in joining us on an upcoming episode to talk about any of your experiences, we'd love to have some guests. You
Yeah.
can email us at cosmicbesties@gmail.com or drop a comment in, the comments below this episode, and we'll definitely get back to you.
Yeah, I also think it might be fun. Email us your questions that you have on your heart. So if there's something in particular that you are wanting answers on, maybe we can use it in a future episode through a different Claire that we're going to be teaching you about. So you can reach out to us on our social media. Both Kelly and I are on Instagram. Kelly is also on TikTok. I am not. Or you can email us as well. And maybe your question will get chosen and we will answer it for you.
I love that. We hope you all have a beautiful day.